Hey guys, AntsCanada here. Are you one of those people that think the concept of a superorganism as it relates to an ant colony is merely a metaphor? Maybe you don't believe in the superorganism concept because you have trouble wrapping your head around the idea that a colony of many individual bodies can be considered a single animal. Well, I can say that sure does seem a little quantum at first, but why don't we approach the superorganism concept in a different way? First, let's look at the parameters of an organism. Let's look at a cow and a cowbird. The cow provides a haven of ticks and fleas for the cowbird to feed on, while the cowbird rids the cow of these annoying parasites. Most probably feel that they are two separate animals, and just because they may be living together and helping each other out, doesn't mean they're a single organism, seeing as they are two separate bodies. Okay then, so let's assume that for an organism to be considered its own self, it has to have its own body. Now what about sea anemone? Is this one animal or several? Each one of those tentacles has a mouth and its own gastrointestinal tract. Yet they act like a single organism with larger tentacles possessing more potent stings crowding towards the outside to protect the smaller tentacles on the inside, which are in charge of spawning and reproduction. They each lack a brain but still seem to act and live as a single whole. No, AntsCanada, don't you know each one of those tentacles has its own DNA and some of those tentacles are male while others are female? Which obviously means they are still separate creatures even though they seemingly may form one single quote-unquote body. Okay, moving on then. So let's assume that for an organism to be its own being, it not only has to have its own body, but it also has to be composed of its own distinct DNA and genetic makeup. Fair enough. So let's look at your body then. Nothing else outside, just your body. What are you made of? Cells. Surely your cells are you and only you because each of your cells contains only your own genetic info, right? Wrong. Did you know that in each one of your cells that makes up your body lies organelles known as mitochondria, which are in charge of powering the cells with energy, and these mitochondria possess their own genetic information separate from your DNA? Think about that for a moment. At some point in our primordial evolutionary past as unicellular organisms, we came together with these tiny living beings and formed a pact with them saying, "Hey, I'm a life form with nutrients to offer you, and you're a life form that can help convert our nutrients into useful energy for us, so we can get even more nutrients for both of us. Why don't we form a killer team and be one single organism?" And voila! The animal cell was born, and eventually gave rise to multi-celled organisms like us. Think that's crazy? Furthermore, do you realize that inside your gut lies a quadrillion microorganisms? That's 10 times a trillion microorganisms. 300 to 1,000 different species of microorganisms helping you digest your food live inside your intestines. They each have their own genetic information and each have their own separate bodies, and they live, reproduce, and die inside you. But without them, you would cease to exist. You need them and they need you. So the question is, are these separate creatures inherently a part of you? I'd say so. Can you imagine billions of years ago when we were just basic life forms that came in contact with these bacteria and said, "Hey, we have something to offer you. We'll provide an awesome mansion with perfect conditions and resources for you guys to thrive if you help us chemically break down some raw food materials. It will be a pact which will benefit both our parties." And just like that, the digestive animal body was born. Face it, you are a superorganism, and even though you consider yourself one separate organism from everything else, you're actually the direct result of several life forms working together. Isn't your entire body just one big colony of various members all interacting together as a whole to benefit each other? Isn't that what an ant colony does too? At some point in their evolutionary past, when ants were still wasp-like creatures, there evolved kinds that began to live as a single colony, where only some of the ants were in charge of reproduction and others in charge of other tasks. Eventually, having many members live as a single colony, each having different functions, proved so beneficial to all members that it became a part of their biology, much like how a cowbird and cow became a part of each other's biology, how the specialization of sea anemone arrangements became part of their biology, how the life forms that evolved into our mitochondria eventually became part of our cells' biology, and how the 300 to 1,000 species of bacteria in our gut eventually became part of our body's biology. Fact is, symbioses form in nature and eventually, over a very long period of time, if the association seems to really work, organisms can combine to form a team, a single unit, a superorganism. Makes you wonder, does that mean we human beings also may be making up some larger superorganism that we're unaware of? As organisms of the planet Earth in a huge circle of life where we depend on other animals, plants, fungi, protists, and monorins for nourishment and other things, and vice versa, does that mean all life on Earth makes up one massive superorganism? Is the entire megacontainer known as the biosphere a single self-benefiting body with all living things making up its parts? This is AntsCanada signing out.
AntsCanada, AntsCanada, all original from the carrier. AntsCanada, AntsCanada, all original from the carrier. In a world where ants are just a novelty.